Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first ever episode of Breeders Book Club. The premise of this show is that every week we're going to read a different parenting book and discuss it, a la one of your favorite bad movie podcasts, but this time it's a bad advice podcast. I'm your host, John, and with us this week is Rich.
Hey.
Rich, what qualifies you to talk about parenting advice?
I have a child who has survived just over a year.
Okay, that's always the hardest time to stop from killing him. And our other host this week is Lauren. Lauren, what are your qualifications?
I am a teacher, and I also have children. I am around a lot of kids.
Are you a good teacher?
I don't know. Sometimes.
How many times have you drawn a large poison symbol on the board and then threatened your children with death?
After reading this book, every day since then.
We're foreshadowing, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get into that. So this week, we read the seminal classic, Dr. James Dobson's The New Dare to Discipline. This is the new Dare to Discipline because he wrote an old Dare to Discipline that wasn't modern enough for our hip era. So he decided to update it with like 200 pages of drug talk, I think is basically the difference. So, Rich, why don't you take a stab at telling us what this book's about?
Okay. The family unit in America is a constant struggle for power. The smaller you are, the more likely... I don't fucking know what this book's about.
Lauren, what's this book about?
This book is about a sad man who, in order to create a business for himself that rivals that of Planned Parenthood, has created a narrative in which children need to be punished well, punished often, and punished some more.
Part of my struggle with defining what this book is about is that the first 3/4 of the book and the last quarter are not about the same goddamn thing.
That's right.
There are very different narrative voices at play in the different sections. I mean, so to me, this book has three distinct movements. Like, the first is a compassionate Christian man explains how to raise children in a structured environment. And I can't tell you how angry I was to realize that he was mostly right. Like, just every page. All my notes for the first third of the book are, fuck, he's right, fuck.
I actually have very few notes for the first part of the book, and I was also saying fuck, knowing that I would have to do this podcast and presumably make fun of him, so yeah.
But then it gets great because there's the movement where we find out how much trouble American education is in. And then there's the final movement, which is just like a two-fisted lunatic screed against like homos and abortionists and homo-abortionists, and it's awesome.
He actually suggests some great jobs that I want, that I didn't even know existed. And I'd like to just go over those for a minute there. Safe sex guru, condom promoter, sexologist, and later, safe sex professional.
My favorite is the condom promoter, as if there's a Flavor Flav of condoms out there. But let's see if we can let's tackle this in a structured way. Did you guys notice any stylistic quirks in this work as we go in?
Well, for a while, I started marking every time he very blatantly sets up a straw man that he can take down. But then it was happening every other page, and I got really bored.
Yeah, the drinking game I invented with the word youngster kept me busy. Yeah, definitely.
He's got such strange syntax in this book and such odd examples. Like, he uses a line early on where he's talking about defiant children, and he says, your child has deliberately flopped his bony little toe across the line you've drawn in the dirt. It's all very specific imagery that makes no fucking sense. Or like when he chides little Wendy for leaving her mother's coffee pot out in the rain. As if we've all been there. Kids love coffee, kids love rain. It's gonna happen, guys. Get ready to discipline.
Just trying to make rainwater coffee, Mom. Yeah, and later on in the education section, when he's talking about the kid that is he's not developed enough to be going to first grade.
Oh, stupid little Donald.
Yeah.
Borderline retarded is the correct
Poor little
labeling.
fucking Donald. But yeah, the imagery there is all like he's like limping through the halls on wobbly legs. Poor spindly little legged Donald.
I noticed is mostly I kind of just wrote delusions of grandeur. Like at a certain point, all of the stylistic choices just made him amazing and everyone else sort of bad.
Well, I don't know if this is a stylistic quirk, but did you guys get the line where he said that homeschooling your kids is like teaching your wife to drive?
Yeah.
Risky at best, disastrous at worst. Teaching a woman how to operate a motor car. They keep menstruating all over the gear shift and everything. Yeah, he's got a lot of really strange wording here, but my favorite part, and Rich and I were talking about this beforehand, the fake names that he uses in this book throughout are the best things I've ever read.
I think my favorite, at least from the pages that I got to, Dr. Psychologist. It makes me really happy.
It should be a recurring segment. It's Ask Dr. Psychologist.
Helen High School was fun, too. But.
Yeah, he's got a line where he talks about how... Well, that line is unintentionally erotic, I think, because he says that a routine date with Helen High School might cost $20 or more, ... In some cases, far more. And it's easy to imagine what sort of situation would cause Helen High School to bring the bill up significantly.
And then there's the fallout when... both Helen Hunt and the guy inevitably contract AIDS. Despite the fact that neither of them,
You called Helen High School Helen Hunt, which means...
Did I?
You had someone in mind while you're reading the passage. I find her very attractive as well.
I'd give her AIDS.
Wow.
With or without a condom.
Right.
Yeah, no matter what.
Well, because the AIDS is too small.
It's
for the condom.
really small. Yeah.
Oh, see, what I learned from this book were that condoms were made of AIDS, which is why it's been proliferating so intensely.
It's a flaw in the design, really.
Which is exactly why I wanted to be a condom promoter. It made the job way more exciting.
Well, then my other favorite trope in this book is that there's this unintentional, through the names, there's an unintentional thread of Freudian anal fixation.
I did not pick up on that.
So here's why. He's got a teacher that he loved in high school. He calls out her as the seminal example of excellent teaching, named Mrs. McAnally. And it might be McAnally, but it's spelled McAnally. So then immediately afterwards, he's got a section about other teachers, and he makes up a teacher named Mrs. Fudge. Uh-huh. So I got to the point where I was just thinking that the teacher he loves' name was Fanny Fudge McAnally.
I mean, the whole thing about spanking also really is...
Yep, it fits right in, right?
I mean, he says, no one who also has a history of child abuse should risk getting carried away again. No one who secretly enjoys, in quotes, the administration of corporal punishment should be the one to implement them.
That's strong advice. If you are you're a sadist and you really get a sexual charge from beating your kids, hire someone else and just watch, guys.
Definitely.
Don't be in there yourself. Just put a one-way mirror, hide behind it.
Yeah.
No safe word for little Timmy.
Little Timmy has to guess the safe word.
Dr. James Dobson, the new guess the safe word. I guess if you go through this in order, the irritating first third is all about how you should have consequences and you should know about psychology so that you can condition your kids correctly. And there was really nothing in it I didn't agree with, except that he'd sometimes throw a little Christy spin on the end of it, be nice to your kids like Jesus would have done. And I was like, yeah, fine. This is an old man who likes Jesus all the time. That's just great. I don't have any problem with that. Then, though...
Can I go back for one second to the first third? Just because I found the girdle whacking was definitely
We got to talk about the girdle whacking.
We have to talk about the girdle whacking.
Why don't you summarize this incident?
Basically, he thanks his mother for grabbing the first thing that was near to her to discipline him harshly, and sort of just mentions that it's a girdle, which again sort of has this sexual underpinning.
God, if only it had been a hammer.
Yeah.
We would never have had this book to read.
But then, goes on to advocate that, yes, punishment doesn't have to be that difficult. It's just, grab anything that's near to you.
It's ready to hand.
Yeah, and
Although that's a violation of his own principles, because in the section about how to beat your child properly, every section ends with the world's fakest question and answer section you've ever seen. And in one of the sections, there's a question that says, "Mr. Dobson, I'm confused. Should I be beating my children with my hand or with an object? What do you think?" And he says, "I suggest you use a neutral object."
Yes. Oh, I thought it would be a very fun game to list neutral objects in case the listeners would like to know what's appropriate.
Well, for
Girdles.
Girdles are
that's the thing.
number one
think,
on the list.
I think that object is charged in some ways. I don't know.
Sexually and also metallically.
Yeah, it's got metal hooks on it and whatnot.
Many.
Yeah. Don't beat your kid with a dildo either. There might be some symbolism built into that.
Hey, well, as long as we're sticking with the Christ theme, I mean, he was beaten with some pretty crazy shit.
You're not with the girdle, though. Even the Romans were like, "This is fucked up. Like, go get the whips. Let's do this right, please." He's like, use a spoon, use a what is like. There was a section about how to cut your own switch, I think, or like whether that was a good idea, and he's against it because he's progressive.
Right. Because he cut an ineffective switch. Okay, but back to the whole
Neutral.
girdle,
Yeah.
the whole girdle incident, because this he refers to this as like the thing that made him never disrespect his mother again. So what he says in leading up to this is that when he was young, he always knew that he could not disrespect his mother if he was less than 12 feet away from her.
Yep.
He learned this lesson the time that he disrespected her when he was 4 feet away. He's very specific about this because they live on, like, I don't know, goddamn football field or something. But and she grabs the girdle and whips him around the chest. And he says, from that day forward, he never disrespected his mother again. You fucking liar. You learned you had to disrespect her from a distance. You said that.
I mean, I had a vivid image after that section
Of how big she was.
Oh no! Instantly to me, she was what's her name? Kathy Bates from Misery. But I imagine him like after that, he's walking through his house like being a naughty little kid, but he's got one of those aliens proximity detectors. It's like beeping ever faster, and then when he's getting the shit beat out of him, he's yelling, "It's a bug hunt." Yeah. I think neutral objects is a good thing to figure out. Like, because when I read that, I was genuinely confused. I was like, electrically neutral? Like, obviously.
Sexually neutral?
Yeah. Like, what is a good neutral object? Just a gray
I mean, a sock is clearly ineffectual,
A sock won't be.
But a sock filled with batteries.
Oh.
Neutral.
No.
Well,
Well, overall neutral, but any of the contact points, you can't do that. No magnets either. Jesus, what's left, right? I guess it is girdles. You're right, James. You win. So based on the girdle thing, I came to believe that the secret agenda of this book is James Dobson's superhero origin story. So
yes.
he is initially hit with a girdle, and then that eventually gives him the power to crush little children's necks with his deadly arm pinch. The only concrete bit of parenting advice that he gives in this book that's not kind of a vague abstraction about how to behave is to grab a child and Vulcan neck pinch them until they want to behave. Then James Dobson, who I started referring to in my head as Dobby as the book went on, it made it a whole lot easier to deal with.
I started referring to him as J-Dubs.
J-Dubs, condom promoter. Like in every superhero movie, once you discover your power, there's like an incident where you have to foil a crime or something. And he saved a Jewish store owner from a team of menacing teens. Menacing anti-Semitic teens that were vandalizing his shop.
Yeah.
Like they do. You know all those anti-Semite teen gangs you see all around the United States these days?
I was actually about to stop reading before I found out that he was a great Jew lover.
Oh, one of the best.
One of the best.
I think we should reenact that scene.
Oi!
You can be the Jewish store owner.
Thank you. I feel like it's in my rights.
Yeah.
Oi! I'm selling a lot of things that you don't sell anymore, like schmaltz.
Hey, Jew store owner, your schmaltz is of low quality. I'm going to spill it upon the florium here.
Gewaltig mir. I wish someone would come and save me.
No one's going to help you. Yiddy.
Well, I'd step in and aid you, poor Jewish store owner, but I was pretty drunk when I read that section.
Oh,
It's all right. I can step in. I can do more than one character here. I'm that professional. Blood boiling. Dirty teen. Enraging. Hands so large. Dobby smash. And then, according to his own report, he squeezed the shit out of the child's neck until he fell to the ground and his friends ran away.
That's right. And then the kid screamed that he was I'm gonna sue you.
Which that shows you that he is a liberal and possibly a Jew, which confuses the story all the more.
am I wrong in thinking that he also claims that he sort of saved the neighborhood? What about making him choose his own switch?
That section was so outside of my experience. I didn't know what to think about it. Like, did you have to ever cut did you get spanked when you were a kid?
I did. Yeah.
Did you have to cut a switch?
No. That's insane.
What'd you get spanked with when you were a kid?
Usually my parents' hand. Usually the hand. But unlike Dr. Dobson suggests, every time they reached up to scratch their ear, I didn't suddenly think I was about to be walloped.
Weak sauce,
That's
your
why
parents.
That's why you need to use a neutral object.
Yeah.
Now, if you reach up to scratch your ear with the paddle, oh shit.
Lauren, were you spanked as a kid?
I was.
Oh, really?
I was, yes. Yeah, I was spanked by both my mom and my dad, and definitely my dad's spanking was reserved for, more serious crimes. There got to be a point where my sister and I would just sort of laugh as my mom, pulled muscles when she was trying to spank us.
Wow. If your mother owned a girdle, you could be a very different person right now. You could have a multi-billion-dollar Christian network.
That's right.
Were you spanked, John?
Yes.
Yeah.
But my dad stopped immediately when one day he saw me. I had a little doll, and he saw me in my room spanking it with the belt buckle side. And he's like, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Because he's been bad." And then my dad said, "Well, why are you hitting him with that end?" And I was like, "So it'll hurt more." After that, they used other means.
Listener, I wish you could, yet again, the face that John made while he said, "He's been bad."
I like it that you assume we have one listener.
Yeah, okay, so listener, just, I don't know. But that doll had been really bad.
And maniacal would be maybe a good adjective for the face.
From that day forward, their punishment style included exorcism.
So I think the tragedy of the first part of this book, though, where he's doing his compassionate parenting thing with occasionally these snatches of beat the shit out of children and squeeze their necks as hard as you can, is that he's got all these caveats about when and why you shouldn't spank your kid. Like, if your kid's retarded, don't spank them. If your kid's been abused, don't spank them. There are other techniques that'll work just as well. And so I kept wondering, then why are you ever spanking them? And it became clear to me later on in the book, he's only doing it because he feels like he has to because it's in the Bible, which I felt was kind of a tragedy.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
In the Bible, the neutral object is a rod, I thought.
Yep, the rod of correction.
Yeah.
Which is like a D&D object. +3 to discipline. Yeah, at every point, he seems like a kindly man who thinks hard. At every point in the beginning of the book, he seems like a kindly man who thinks hard about the right way to act in every situation and to be fair to his kids. And he just has to beat them to it's like tithing for him. He's just got to check it off the list. Yeah. But then, in the second half, where we start with the discipline and education, he starts to come through in a big way. And it starts small, where there are these weird little shots across the bow of liberals that come out of nowhere. He suddenly, at one point in that section, is talking about how you can't discipline kids anymore in schools. You can't even use corporal punishment thanks to these fucking pussy parents and their ACLU lawyers. I was like, that's weird. And then it just ramps up from there.
I was once almost paddled in elementary school.
Really?
Yeah.
That means someone was once almost fired in elementary school.
No, they still used to do it. I mean, I'm from kind of a small town in Colorado, but yeah, they used to paddle the kids. And I didn't finish my phonics one day in second grade. So I at recess, I had to go to the principal's office. And he sat me down, and he used to, this crazy fucker, he used to write the names of the children that he had paddled on the paddle, and then he would hang it on the wall at the end of the year.
It's good to keep
Holy
records.
shit, like scalps.
Yeah. and so I'm in his office, and I'm terrified because I was a pretty good kid, and he's turning the paddle over, and he's saying, I write the names of all the little boys that I paddle on here. It's funny, Richie, I never thought your name would be on here. And I'm a wreck, and he's like, crying's not going to help you now.
What?
Oh, no.
Now,
Rich, there's a little Bible passage I've memorized called Ezekiel 24:17.
So I finished my phonics. He left. I finished my phonics. I didn't actually get paddled for not finishing my phonics, but...
Wait, so he turned the paddle over, suggested that your name would soon be emblazoned on it, and that was all it took for you to finish your phonics?
Dude, I was a wreck.
He was going to fuck you up with a PH.
What part of your phonics did you not want to finish?
I don't even know that it was I just didn't do it. I don't know. I fucking hated second grade.
Beating. Well, then...
Wreck is spelled with a W-R.
I turned out to be an English major. Maybe that had a big part to do with it. I gotta finish my phonics.
Holy shit, it's another origin story, just like Dobson's actually, except this time you were beaten for phonics instead of with it, because it's an abstraction. But if he could have beaten you with phonics, you'd be a better writer than you are today, is what I'm saying. Well, so this section also includes... It includes a lot of strange and contradictory stuff, but one of the opening bits is him talking about working with his wife Shirley, who sounds like a prize cunt. Like, she sounds like the worst person I've ever seen. But
she sounds lovely. I just want to say, I think she sounds like the emblem. I know that this book is not meant to be a feminist trope, but I feel that some people could go back and look to Shirley.
Yeah, if you want to be a willing prisoner in your own home, she is certainly your role model.
He does include a chapter at the end for moms. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but it is for moms, and I like to think that he based it just based on Shirley's complaints about her life, and then threw her 10 bones, which are the 10 things that you should give to your wife.
Oh, is that's the section where he goes, take a little time out for yourself,
That's
ladies.
right.
Go bowling. Yeah, you get it, man. You're plugged in.
Or just waste an afternoon shopping.
Waste an afternoon shopping for me. Get it? We need pork rind Shirley. But there's the section where he talks about Shirley being a substitute teacher, because I guess back in the day they didn't have background checks, so they didn't know about her previous offenses. Right. And her way of dealing with the fact that classes are totally undisciplined. She walks into the class and, without saying anything, draws a skull and crossbones on one board and writes, poison list. Then she tells the children something like, a speech along the lines of, I'm going to work with you, but we're not going to be friends. See this list? You don't want to be on this list. And then she says, and I've got a piece of magic chalk that has 2 eyes on it, and it can see you no matter where it is. And if it sees a child being bad, it's going to write your name on the poison list. But if it sees a child being good, it will teleport to your desk, and if you find the chalk there, you can write your name on the board and leave school 3 minutes early. Let's go. So... I'm interested to know how that would fly in the school system in the Colorado area.
I actually, sadly, was still somewhat on board for the education section. And it's not because I am, quote unquote conservative, but I felt like...
Talk me out of this.
Depending on the age of the kid, this clearly would not work with middle school, and I think we should definitely come up with a scenario in which we decide what the poison list would be, for middle school and all of that. But for younger kids,
no, for middle school, you just actually poison them.
Yeah, of course. Okay, great. I hope that. Okay, yeah. But I think that actually it made some sense to younger kids. And it's kind of why I stopped teaching elementary school, because I'm just not that delusional. Like, I cannot come up with crazy things to trick them. But I feel like other than it being very bizarre and sort of fantastical, it would probably work.
I think it would work. I'm sure it would work because she threatened to murder them. Like, that's the subtext. And she's like, obviously the scariest bitch alive, so why not? But I felt like you could achieve the same results without invoking a mystic chalk demon and without, like...
You could, but it wouldn't be as fun for you.
Well, that's true, but then why stop there? Like, just wheel a bloody post with, like, manacles on it into the front of the room.
And as a substitute, bloody hands, fall out of your purse and just quickly tuck them away. Yeah, I mean, I think you could get really creative with Shirley as a base, is what I'm trying to say.
I really like this. So you're just... Yeah, be crazier than they are. It's like the Mel Gibson from Lethal Weapon / Mel Gibson all the time strategy.
Yes.
Walk in and say, one kid gave me trouble, was a substitute. One! I mean, because, and then after that section, he goes... Somebody said, well, did parents object? Like, one of the questions was something like, did parents object to Shirley's way of handling the class? And he's like, well, people are always going to object to something. And, I mean, it does really go against the way that I want to, like, I don't like making up magic shit that's not real.
I just realized why I think I have a really high threshold for this particular incident.
What have you done?
Unnamed school district, has a really difficult time attracting and retaining substitute teachers. and I feel like the fact that she even took time to be drug-free, presumably, come up with a little plan for herself. We're talking advanced substitute maneuvers.
This is the saddest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, so just... I guess that's some encouragement to you out there, meth addicts and juggalos.
You too could be a substitute for unnamed school district.
Yeah, in particular, Lauren will advocate for you if, like, you can have the kind of persona where when the children see you, they just yell, "Oh shit, Omar coming!"
Yes, you can substitute for me anytime.
What is your real method, though, of like obtaining like control and a controlled environment in a classroom? Like, it doesn't have to be funny. Like,
okay.
Like, what's the right way to do it?
I have 5 rules, and I feel like with these 5 rules, I can control the whole classroom, so I don't need to have any more. And I make it very explicit that I have 5 rules. And so I think the kids just think, well, that's not that many. And I have them posted propaganda in the front and the back of my room.
So I assume you just threw out the shitty commandments, like
exactly,
and
yeah.
So adultery and ass coveting are encouraged.
They're encouraged, yes, but stealing not so much. Yeah. So basically, I mean, they have to be basically they can earn up to 5 points. So it's like their currency for the day. So it's like they can earn $5, but it goes into their grade. Granted, they don't know how little that affects their grade, but it does. It affects my day-to-day operations, so therefore I privilege it. But basically, they get a point for being on time and ready to work. I have another system by which they know what they need to bring to class, which is outside of my room because I don't want to stand there and tell them, you need a pencil, you need a pencil, you need a pencil. So if they are in their seats, I do a countdown, and if they're in their seats, by the time I count down, I don't go by the bells because I feel like, I don't know, one day they could be wrong. And I'm always right. Then they get that point. Then following directions. That's a really good one because you can tell them anything.
Yeah.
I tell you not to listen to me today, so therefore, if you listen to me, you weren't following. So it's great. Following directions.
These are exactly the same thing that you do to set up a totalitarian government.
Excellent. No wonder it's working so well. So...
Why did he get shot? No pencil.
The rule today was get shot.
That's right. Follow directions. Keep up. Then, because I teach drama, I have 2 rules, or 2 rules that go along with that. One is being brave, and then one is being good audience, which is really a fancy way of saying be a good listener, which everyone says in their rules. So it's really nice. I have like a fancy term to hide behind and be like, good audience, you know? And then last but not least, completing daily assignments. And with those, I control the class.
So now why would those rules not work for a substitute teacher and instead a psychotic dumb show must be done?
That's a good question.
And here we cut to the weakness of Mr. Dobson's entire argument. He makes all these great claims about, I mean, he doesn't make these claims, you just did, but like the problem is that like he's got under lots of circumstances a great way to behave, and then he says under special circumstances behave in this super shitty way with no like real reason why you'd ever need to do that.
I think part of it is the training, and I know that's like a behaviorist standpoint, but I think, you know, I literally spend the first 2 weeks of school training them on each of those rules.
You have a clicker, I assume?
Yes.
Bag of treats? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
That's a neutral object. Click this all up, yo ass boy.
I honestly got distracted in that section just trying to think about her like feeble attempts to draw a skull and crossbones. And if the kids just spent the entire day like, I mean, a poison list, that makes sense. But what the fuck is that next to it?
I went completely the other direction. I imagine like an elaborate like Slayer album cover style thing.
Shirley is a repressed artist.
Well, God knows she's repressed. So.
Yes. But it would be more fun if she was a repressed artist.
Well, and then, so as that section kind of like opens the floodgates for his ideas about what is wrong with education in general. And it's kind of awesome to read what he says about what we need to do and then work backward to figure out what he thinks the world is like. Which is not, the world's not like this. Like, because he's got, everything he's doing is reacting to his idea that the 60s destroyed America. And that, like, that there was some sort of parenting style in the 60s that led to gang violence and, like, collapse of the economy and all of this shit, where he lays out these theories that people had that, like, you should let children do whatever they want, they should not be controlled in any way, and that a child can do anything as violent as they want because that's just getting their aggression out. As far as we know, did anyone ever think that? Like, is that real? And if so, what book is it in so we can read that next time? Okay. So it's straight up bullshit.
I'm just like,
He's got a story to set up his discussion of what's wrong with education about Becky Holloway, who is an indulged teen.
she's hot.
Yeah, Oh, wait a minute. It's a fake name again. She represents the Hollow Way. Do you see it? Brilliant, Mr. Dobson. You are like a restoration comedy author. Congreve owes you a debt. Anyway. So she terrorizes her parents and like gives them shit all the time, and then her parents decide that the right way to deal with her is to give her a party at which she beats her mother senseless and leaves her bleeding on the floor, and then the police find the mother or the dad finds the mother bleeding on the floor while they're in the back dancing and partying.
Happy birthday to you.
There it is.
Well, we've just discovered that let's call her Girdle Womp.
Girdle Wampus.
For Girdle Wampus.
Sounds like a Chronicles of Narnia character.
Yeah. has smacked her son into behaving for the rest of eternity. And then we also find she's a softie, and she tells a story of or he tells a story, I guess, of this little bird that was in the nest with the mommy bird.
God, yeah. It's so terrible.
And basically, the little bird did not mind his mommy and fell out of the nest where a big cat got him. And it's just sort of this parable to mind your mommy or you will get killed.
When I tell you to mind me, it is because I know what's best for you, just as the mommy bird did with her baby bird. When I tell you to stay in the front yard, it's because I don't want you to run into the street and get hit by a car. I love you. I don't want anything to happen to you. If you don't mind me, I'll have to spank you.
I don't want anything to happen to you unless I inflict it.
I would have liked it if the baby bird fell out of the tree and was eaten by a cat owned by Negroes or something like that. like fitted into the larger worldview.
They never keep their cat inside.
Don't ever stray from the nest. Your own nest.
Well, he says he's
With
got the
the-
page open.
With Becky Holloway?
Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
There she is.
During the course of the evening, Mrs. Holloway said something that angered Becky. The girl struck her mother and left her lying in a pool of blood in the bathroom.
Oh, my.
Away from home at the time, Mr. Holloway returned to find his wife helpless on the floor. He located the unconcerned daughter in the backyard, dancing with friends.
Whatever.
As he described for me the details of their recent nightmare, I just can't. She's bleeding. He spoke with tears in his eyes. His wife, he said, was still in the hospital, contemplating her parental failures as she recovered from her wounds.
In the parental failure unit.
I just gotta say, that bitch wasn't contemplating shit.
The mom had to tattoo the various rules that she follows now that she has no short-term memory after the beating from her daughter. Yeah. Mom Mento. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I really love, though, that, like, Becky Holloway is... She doesn't need a spanking. She's a fucking psychopath.
Who beats her mom senseless and then goes on partying.
Yeah.
Most people would have the decency to stop partying for a minute.
Yeah, I've known some shitty kids in my day. And also, no other kid at the party was like, hey, you just killed your mom. Let's at least dispose of the body before we start dancing.
Fuck you, I'm partying.
They knew what a ringleader Becky Holloway was. They knew not to cross her with such troubles.
Well, on the other hand, imagine yourself in middle school and you just watched your friend beat the shit out of her mom, and you go, hey, should we call the hospital or something? And she goes, fuck you, I'm giving hand jobs outside. Would you call the cops? No, you would not. You'd be in the hand job line.
This line's really long.
How much longer till we get there? When you step over Becky Holloway's mom's body, you're really close.
It's like a Disney ride with a really long twisting.
Yeah.
All right, anyway.
This hidden line bullshit's gotta go.
And then, okay, so then after that, I guess that is right at the beginning, but then that is foreshadowing the kind of circumstances that can lead to Becky Holloway. So then we learn about the elementary alternative school anecdote, where they're telling us about the elementary alternative school, which was a Seattle public school in 1970, which apparently had no classes, had no curriculum, had no programs, had no requirements, and where they used 4-letter words to use to get attention or to hammer home a point. Which I don't know why they'd need attention or a point if the school wasn't doing anything, but still.
And for some reason, they constantly chanted, kill the pig, spill his blood.
Fuck it, guys, kill the pig.
I'm still stuck on the 4-letter words they're using. Like, is he trying to somehow say that they were, like, bad words, or they just weren't vocabulary rich?
Get the bonk over here.
Yeah.
Math! Do you think that school ever existed? And then immediately after that, there's another thing that's like a letter that a woman wrote to Time or Newsweek or something, saying how her life was destroyed by her time at the Sand and Sea School in Greenwich Village.
Sand and Sea. If you didn't know already that might be not a very strict school, or you had your qualms, maybe, don't judge a book by its cover, but judge a school by its name. Sand and Sea.
The Sand and Sea School in the Village in Manhattan. And then the anecdote is that they just did crafts all the time, and so they never learned to read, and they mostly learned support group jargon. So she found out that like instead of learning anything, they just pounded maize into tortillas or something for their American history year. But then they learned that little Timmy, when he stood on the table and took his pants off, was acting out. But he talks about that as if that's the predominant mode of all liberal education. Like, that's the direction we're going to go unless we follow his stern prescription for school beatings.
Yes.
And dress codes. He in the same paragraph, he's like, so this is what the liberals want. They want the Sand and Sea School. He lays it out as if we either get the Sand and Sea School is going to lead to a world of complete moral corruption, including kids wearing T-shirts that feature profanity and heavy metal bands. That he specifically calls out. And then he goes on to say, we need to follow the excellent example of Russian, Japanese, and British schools where structured learning environments are also fun. Because you hear nothing more than how much fun Japanese cram schools are. And British, boys' schools with their sodomy curriculum.
Sodomy curriculum.
Well, as we discussed earlier, that's kind of right up his alley. So.
Hey-o.
I'm thinking about what's involved in sodomy curriculum.
Well, the unit 1 is just relax.
Later on, when he starts talking about how in New York schools they decided to try and pay the students to try out this new software, and a bunch of them wound up learning to read that way. I think I cracked his code, and I'd like to read you guys a passage here.
Okay.
The young rebels who would have laughed off a direct offer to teach them to read had to be enticed via the back door. Researchers told them, look, there's... Sorry. Researchers told them, look, there's money involved. We'll actually pay you. And most of the adolescents who accepted the offer learned to read. A similar system was applied in the Alabama prisons.
Well, this thing is loaded. This is the beginning of his constant factual inaccuracies section.
Yes. I was so excited when I got to this part. I was like, all right, here it comes. Here it comes.
Well, and during this section, he tells us that the 60s sexual revolution caused the proliferation of AIDS worldwide, which is a mighty tall claim, I think, to make, especially for sub-Saharan Africa and
Fucking flower power bullshit going on in Africa.
I also really, really enjoyed his graph of the intelligence quotients. It was just beautiful. Just basically for listener,
her name's Fanny Fudge.
Fanny Fudge. It looks kind of just like a bell curve. And on the extreme left, we have retarded. 3%. And then climbing that slow, gentle hill is the slow learner. And in the middle, we have the normal range. Then on the other side of the curve is bright normal. These sound like paint colors. And then gifted 2%. And I was just intrigued. I was really intrigued by how this was developed, or because I felt like the more his arguments fell apart, the further his need for graphs, because he includes another graph later on, and I think he's just unraveling and no, data, you must draw lines, boxes, and so then he includes on page 190 my schoolwork. It's basically like a behavior chart, chore chart.
Oh God, that thing.
With, of course, bowling with dad for doing math, for doing arithmetic is right up there. And I really liked how it tied in. That's cute, because bowling, you got to do some arithmetic. He's smart, that Dobson. He is smart. But anyway, I really was interested as to where he got this. I don't believe he cited it, but I could be wrong.
Well, I think all he did was know what a bell curve was and then put some labels on it. I was disappointed by that graph, because the way he uses retarded is like the way that, if you read those 1800s textbooks where they just lay out the different kinds of retarded you can be, where it's the stupidest ones are imbeciles, and then above that morons, and then troglodytes, and they've got a whole taxonomy of retards. It seemed like he was going to go into that, and I was really sad when he didn't.
That would have been great. Yeah. The one thing that where he was talking about kids that are in the 70 or 80 range can possibly do just fine in school. They just might need the right. I think that Forrest Gump was in 82 on that chart that they showed.
Yeah. Definitely. I was very interested in that. And then I thought that the note to parents as a follow-up. Like, what should you do? What should one do as an educator? Because now he had me hooked. I mean, at this point, I was thinking, he pulled out a graph. All right, I'm going to listen to him. So on 163, I'm going to read this letter. Maybe not the whole thing, but in italics it says strictly confidential, which, of course, as we all know...
When a kid sees an eyes only warning like that, yeah, they're gonna walk away fast.
I really liked how he made this user friendly though. Name of student, blank. He leaves a blank for you just in case you're interested to fill it in. He doesn't make one up for you this time. Jimmy Dumbass.
Dumas. Oh, damn it.
The above-named student apparently has some limitations which may be important to understanding his academic performance and classroom behavior. Although he does not qualify for special education, according to a strict interpretation of the education code, which we all know is such a pain when you take those federal laws strictly, his intellectual ability seemingly falls into a borderline category. And then he just goes on. But the best part of all is that there's a note below, and it says, note, again in italics, please destroy this note to minimize potential embarrassment to the student.
Bada, bada!
I just figured if this kid's really borderline, we all know those paper eaters. Just give it to the kid. It'll be gone in 2 seconds flat.
That section too, the strict interpretation of the education code, I don't think the education code is a thing. And there's lots of things that he acts like is a thing that's not a thing. Like when he tells us that was it Planned Parenthood is handing out the phone number for the gay and lesbian switchboard.
Yeah.
But he capitalized it. He fooled me.
I wish I knew the phone number for the gay and lesbian
I was so
switchboard.
disappointed that it wasn't included.
Yeah.
I was like, we are so calling this live on the air.
Oh, that's right. It says the phone number for the gay and lesbian switchboard is, and then just underscores.
Yeah.
So that we don't find out what it is and call it.
I really loved how he's got the list of that he supposedly took from an actual excerpt of what they want to teach our kids in sexual education.
Oh,
and
yes.
he gives the whole list, and I was like, that's all incredibly reasonable.
Oh, was it?
None of this upsets me.
Well, he's horrified by. There's a part where he talks about what the abortionists want to teach our kids, and there's the Teen Bill of Rights, which my wife used to be a sexual health educator. And so I've read the Teen Bill of Rights a lot of times, and I think it's great. And shit like
she gave it to you on your first date.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I
Just so
have
you
a right
know.
to make my own choices. Well, this is gonna be a less exciting date, I guess.
Do you have the right to make yours?
But he's horrified by stuff like, I'm in control of my body. Bullshit, you are. Only the Lord Jesus and I are.
I found it. There does not have to be prescribed gender roles for dating partners. There does not. He's just horrified by their grammar. The right of women to have an abortion is guaranteed by the Supreme Court, although there are restrictions in some states. These are just facts.
It's true. Is this the same section where he tells us that, because the education section eventually turns into a no co-education section and a no sexual education section? So there's the part where he talks about how if you talk about sex with boys and girls in the same room, it destroys the girl's modesty.
Yes, I like that part. Yes, I think he kind of says by knowing the anatomical parts, it sort of destroys their mystery somehow.
Because I remember always dreaming of, on my wedding night, being like, what does this do?
Yeah, it's much more romantic if you're like, what's this shit?
Can I poke it?
I just flap this thing here and then it...
First, let me put on my slippery condom. That was the other question I had. Where are these people just getting these slippery condoms?
Wait, when does he talk about a slippery condom?
In almost every...
The condoms that
he
break
says.
or fall off.
He
or
actually never, I could be
implode.
wrong. I feel like he never actually says that they break, which of course is something that we all know to be plausible. But in terms of breaking, he doesn't talk about that as much. He says on 210, it's somewhere in there. Now we're getting into small writing.
Oh, yeah, like 14 pages of
Yeah.
tiny writing.
In a study of homosexual men, the British Medical Journal. Well, that's a real thing. Here we go. Reported the failure rate due to slippage. Oh, and breakage. Is this a work comp injury, or is this like to be 26%? I just like that he included slippage.
I like, no, you bring up the work comp injury. I like the idea that there's a woman like setting up one of those wet floor type signs outside her vagina. Shows a guy like slipping and
This was that was a section that had me finally just checking his sources in the back. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because condoms can fail at least 15.7% of the time. And okay, another like odd language thing, condoms can fail fucking all the time.
That's correct.
But so I went and looked up this study. The study was from 1982. So I think even in 92 when he was writing this, there were probably some advances.
So I looked up this study too. Not that study, but I looked up like what is the actual failure rate of condoms, and the actual failure rate of condoms is about 10% under typical usage, which means when you don't use them sometimes, if you use them all the time, it's like 1%,
Right.
as we all know. And that's only when you slip and fall and your condom breaks.
Oh, I also thought it might be fun to make up slogans for second virginity. Or commercials. The guy you slept with, a total asshole. Don't worry, you can forget all about it. You can become a second virgin. You can have a second virginity.
How about loose physically, not morally?
Once you pop, you can stop.
These are gold.
I like how the safe sex program, how he says that it promotes homosexuality. And I was like, with that drab pamphlet, I don't think so. We're now just getting into sort of ridiculous sound bites, but I also wrote down abortion on demand.
Like on Netflix. You just
Yeah.
I for one, I don't like to pay for my abortions, so I just download them over the internet.
So he like really hates Planned Parenthood. He really hates sexual education. Oh, and he loves to talk about how profit-minded the abortionists are.
Yeah,
I know.
that's fantastic.
I've got some friends that are really rich. All of them are abortionists. Every single one. There's no more lucrative career in the country.
I honestly think that if there was money in abortion, Focus on the Family would probably be supporting abortion.
And also, like, Planned Parenthood. The people who do abortions at Planned Parenthood do them pro bono.
Yeah.
They're not getting paid.
We should try to figure out the earnings that he made on this book alone versus what Planned Parenthood makes in a year, and just kind of go from there.
And he keeps telling us how to give him money for different things that fucking Focus on the Family's doing. He tells us about the teen abstinence magazine that we can
Why
subscribe to.
did you not order that before this podcast?
Oh, man, we
That
should've.
is
That's-
really sad.
I wanted every one of those publications.
Oh yeah, like the interview. There was like some interview that he had given, and he said like, just write to Focus on the Family. They'll give you a copy. I was like, my God, there's not time.
I wonder if there's anything online.
That boys' abstinence magazine, I can almost guarantee you can stack that up against any hardcore gay pornography you want, and that boys' abstinence magazine is going to be far gayer. The creepiest section in the book for me, by far, on things that he's selling, is when he tells us how, when his daughter turned 10, he and his wife gave her a golden key to wear around her neck, symbolizing her virginity, that she will give to the one man who will take it from her. And that's a really and you can order them from Focus on the Family.
Which I gotta say, whatever man is on the receiving end of that key, if he actually wears it, is gay.
No, he's got to wear it so he can start the pussy.
Oh!
He takes it to this like philosophy of government level where he tells us that nations are founded on the basis of sexual exclusivity and that nations that have failed to remain sexually exclusive have fallen like Rome. And he says, any human society is free to display great energy or enjoy sexual freedom. The evidence is that they cannot do both for more than one generation. One nation under blue balls. What the fuck am I supposed to believe about him?
I'm just so sick of Rome being such a scapegoat.
I like thinking of all the civilizations that have fallen and like try to figure out the ways that they fucked too much. Like the Soviet Union, they were just nailing each other.
It was very cold.
We have been, I think we've been very good about not taking specific issue with Christianity itself here. As you guys probably know.
We have been very good.
Yeah.
Well,
Why?
I think we've been kind of insultingly dismissive of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, he's a Christian moron. He believes some stupid bullshit. We'll just set that aside.
Yeah.
but, like, believe your stupid bullshit. But then this dude, like, he's not even doing Christianity right. Go ahead.
I just forgot about the part where in the past it was now you can arrange a quiet abortion. And I was just thinking, yeah, where are the good old days where you could also get a trip to Mexico out of it?
I like the idea of a quiet abortion, just you and the abortionist, light some candles, and make an evening of it.
Sorry, I took us back. I just thought that was hilarious.
No.
I want a loud abortion. Bring in a marching band.
He's got these really weird invocations of religion, though, that I was offended by, and I don't believe the shit. Like, there's a fake Q&A section where they say, if immediate reinforcement works when, to teach kids about good and evil, why doesn't God use immediate reinforcement on us? How come we don't immediately see the consequences of our actions? And he goes, even though God doesn't always get here on time, the promises in Scripture are the most reliable things in the universe. He will, italicized, have the last word.
I have a follow-up question. Since all of these questions are kind of bullshit, and you've sort of invented them based on quote-unquote questions people have asked you in the past, so you're having a conversation with yourself, why would you include a question you clearly don't know the answer to?
It's true.
Would it be to cite the power of God once more before you close the book?
Yeah.
No.
Surely not, no.
I like it that his straw man is beating the shit out of him. Straws flying everywhere. Oh, and then there's another one that is AIDS a plague to punish homosexuals and the promiscuous? Remember that one? And he says, well, not exactly. But if I choose to leap off a 10-story building, I'll die when my body hits the ground below. It's inevitable. But gravity was not designed by God to punish my folly. He established physical laws that can be violated only at great peril. So it is with his moral laws. Which means that being grossed out by homos is part of the fabric of the cosmos.
It also gives me newfound respect for anal sex. I mean, if it's as difficult as leaping off of a building...
And landing on a fire hydrant. But imagine to equate being like homophobic with fucking weak nuclear force is amazing. Like, you want to get quantum entangled? And then later he goes, God's concept of right and wrong is an expression of God's divine nature and was in force before the beginning. Which means that your pussy was awful before your pussy existed. I mean, imagine that. Your dick was terrible.
My dick was terrible when used improperly.
And
who the hell have you been talking to?
What is an improper use of your dick as a neutral discipline object? Well, I think that we should talk about people for whom this is a good book to read. Who do we recommend this book to?
My voice and speech teacher at NYU, she should read this book, but not read it silently. She should read it aloud. I think there should be a staged reading of this book, culminating in the climactic reading of all of the slang terms for drugs. Just very fast and yes. She would be my top choice.
That's the most boring thing I've ever read.
But after memorizing it, I'm now hip.
Got any horse, G? Let's see. Who do you recommend this book to, Rich?
I would have trouble recommending it to anyone without the obvious caveat of, like, let's just rip the last third of the book off. And then the first part actually could have some decent advice.
I recommend this book to whoever would be listening to this podcast anyway, because I can't believe I'm going to say this. This is probably the best distillation of this kind of like rational discipline I've ever seen in one place. Like if you're having trouble disciplining a kid, read the first third, skip the shit where you beat your children, and it's actually like totally right. And then keep reading because there's a little present for you at the end, which is like 150 pages of pure psychosis. So it's win-win for you kids that have difficult children out there. Also, make sure that you read it to yourself in your head in a Dobby voice, which is what I did.
Can we hear what you mean by that?
Harry Potter doesn't touch himself, does he?
That's really more Gollum.
Mr. Potter needs a key to keep his vagina closed. Precious.
And his whole quest is to throw that key into a volcano so he can finally fuck somebody.
You know, actually, I missed this very obvious intended audience, so I would like to recommend it not only to my voice teacher, Jonna, but also to for children and those and those who love them. That is actually the first line. This is a book about children and those who love them. So, pedophiles, also, feel free to read this.
Yep.
Since you mentioned the beginning, we failed to mention fucking Shirley whipping their 18-month-old daughter with a switch on her legs because she wouldn't stop going outside. 18 months. Oh, wait, 15 months. She was 15 months. Anyway, that's my closing thought.
I'm sure it's Shirley and not the chalk demon that did that. I don't think she can tell the difference anymore.
Magic chalk told me to.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Breeders' Book Club. Next week, we'll be reading an undetermined book because we haven't figured it out yet. We'll get better organized for the next time. I'm John. This has been Rich and Lauren. Say goodbye, folks.
Goodbye.
Bye.
We love you.
Crunchy foods while we're trying to record.
I know.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Take some popcorn.
I should have done what they do in the big Hollywood podcasts, where there's just a bowl of pudding that you can reach into with your hands.
This has been a Palmcar Drive-By production.
This is for you, Jeffrey.